Hey, I'm Jimmy from Superpath. I'm here today with Alex Poulos, the VP of Marketing at Docsend. We have two different roles we're going to be talking about today, two content roles. We'll break those out and chat about each separately. Maybe first you can just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Docsend.
Yeah, Jimmy, thanks for having me. Docsend is a secure document sharing platform that has a multitude of different use cases. It can be used all the way from a founder sharing their pitch deck when they're actually fundraising and they want to get some intel as to what VCs are looking at their pitch deck and how. Docsend is being used in M&A transactions, in sourcing deals, managing deals, executing deals. It's used by sales team, when they send out sales collateral or sales presentations or price quotes. The number of different use cases is almost unlimited right now. And that's why we're seeing a lot of growth and accelerating growth through 2020. In terms of culture, Docsend is a company with a lot of humility coming all the way from the CEO and the founders. It's a low ego company. It's a company that invests a lot in its customers. We have what I think is a pretty amazing NPS of 48, which I think is really good for a B2B SaaS company. And, given all the different problems we're tackling for different personas and different use cases, it's never boring, right? It's always so much to do. And that percolates all the way from the founding team to marketing to sales and the product.
We're going to go and talk about the other role you're hiring for now.
Very related, yeah.
Yeah, which is a content marketing manager role. And this role is specifically will be filling something you mentioned, which is running the startup fundraising playbook. That's probably oversimplifying it, but maybe you could sort of paint the picture of what this role is.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, we spent the last 12 months really creating some unique content around startup fundraising that applies to both founders and VCs. And in essence, we launched what I would like to call as a data product. We call it the Docsend Startup Index. And the Docsend Startup Index, contrary to what a Crunchbase will report, which is how funding looked like in the previous quarter, how many deals we had, how much money was deployed. Our metrics and our index is forward-looking. So based on the activity we see on our platform, based on the surveys we run with our users who are founders, how do we predict fundraising is going to change next quarter, right? An example is when COVID started, right, and work from home was institution. We saw an immediate slowdown in the engagement of our platform. It was a slowdown. Like VCs were afraid, they were focusing on the existing companies. Founders didn't know what to expect, But, a few weeks later, we saw a surge in activity in our platform. Like, things started happening again. So we predicted, we're going to see a huge Q3 in terms of fundraising, which is exactly what happened, right? So this is the Docsend Startup Index. It's based on data, but it is a content play. And this person will actually own this initiative for us, all the way from actually helping run the service and prescribe what data we need to collect. All the data go into a data warehouse, so we have a very formalized way. We have a business intelligence analyst who's helping us analyze the data. And then this person will actually, use the data to generate reports, live metrics, pitches to the media, potentially, specific content pieces for our users or a subset of our users or, a specific industry. So how do we turn that data into narrative and insights? So it is a pretty exciting role for someone who enjoys unique content and also enjoys working with data, right? Because that's the catch.
Yeah.
You need comfort working with data.
So you need a strong writer, someone who's analytical. I mean, do they need to be analytical to the point where they can write their own SQL queries, or that's what the business intelligence folks will do?
Exactly. So no, we don't want someone who's going to write their SQL queries, but someone who, will ask questions that can be answered with data, and then they can take those data points and turn them into a narrative, right? So not everyone can do that in my experience.
Got it. Okay. If you're thinking about the like Paul Graham's maker manager schedule, it sounds like the director role that we just talked about is more on the manager side. It sounds like this role is more on the maker side, where this person would be spending the bulk of their time strategizing, writing, editing, analyzing. Is that accurate?
Yes, but also, right, interfacing again with us, our CEO. Our CEO gives a lot of presentations of that content, right? So what makes a good
Interesting.
pitch deck, right? We send that content to VCs and accelerators. This is the content we primarily pitch to media, right? And they write about. So you know, this role will be intimately involved in that as well.
Got it. Got it. Okay, cool. And are there certain things you would look for in an application that would make it stand out? Certain types of writing or experience at certain types of companies?
Yeah, I mean, I will say two things, right? So the first one is obviously having some prior experience, having produced data-driven content, right? Think about the content that you read in TechCrunch or Crunchbase, right? If someone has created something like that based on data and not opinions, that's a big plus. And the second one, it's a little more intangible, but some true curiosity to come up with some answers to hard questions, right? Which is actually how we can use and explore data. Again, not everyone has that curiosity, but if you have it and you want to work with data and come up with some, I guarantee it's unique content. No one else has the data points that Docsend has. That's an amazing role.
I would recommend for folks considering applying for this, as you're thinking about the writing samples you might send in, to maybe set aside the ultimate guide to insert keyword here style stuff, and show some more original thinking where you asked a tough question and found an answer, identified a cool concept and explored that. Just something different, something that doesn't look like just like run-of-the-mill SEO content.
Yeah. I mean, the way I like to describe that, right, is like, I'm not looking for what is a company pitch deck content. I'm looking like at what makes a good pitch deck content. Like go analyze 20 pitch decks that were successful and give me some data points. Like, how many slides were they? Where was the attention? What were the slides that stood out, right? And have some data to prove your points. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it.
Totally. I mean, if you want me to close a little bit talking about marketing and how marketing fits, right before Russ joins, Docsend is 100% inbound shop. So marketing is responsible. It has a true leadership seat on the table. We are responsible for bringing demand, bringing growth. And frankly, myself, I wouldn't want it any other way, right? Docsend is an horizontal product, as I mentioned. We market it vertically. Definitely the director of content role will need to be able to think outside a single segment and be able to deal with multiple audiences and multiple target markets.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but also that shows the growth potential that the company has, right? We're so successful. We were so successful in the last 12 months just by looking at one vertical. There's at least half a dozen verticals to a dozen verticals right now that are popping up that we need to start addressing and accelerating. Got
it. That's really cool. It just sounds like an awesome opportunity to work for, a startup that is established, but, hasn't IPO'd yet. You're right. Like you sort of get to experience and participate in that growth, which is, for the individuals thinking about this role, it's a really cool opportunity to hitch your wagon to a company that's moving in the right direction.
Oh, yeah, you teased me to say that, but each one of the 3 months in Q3 have been a record month, one after the other, right? So that shows how acceleration happens, even in the face of COVID. That frankly hasn't been an effect on us at all. Every month is a better month for us, and that's a great sign. That's where we want to be and continue that. Got it.
One other question I did want to ask you is about location. Where are you located? Will this person eventually be in an office, or are you okay with someone remote?
We are okay, someone being remote, right? Of course, it depends on that person and how they can work remotely. The preference for the director role will be to be in the office, but that's not a showstopper. We do have an office in downtown San Francisco. Obviously, it's closed. We all work from home. At some point, when it's safe, we'll reopen along with everyone else. So if someone wants to work in an office in San Francisco, that's definitely an opportunity there when it's safe to do so.
Got it. And so for folks interested, there'll be buttons below and to the side of this listing where you can express interest, and then I'll be helping make intros to Docsend as we identify good candidates. If you have any questions, email me. We'll make sure those questions get answered. Alex, really appreciate it. We're going to talk to Russ in a minute here about company culture and more things about Docsend kind of more broadly, but really appreciate you doing this and just sort of painting the picture of what these roles are like.
Totally.
Path here with Russ, CEO of Docsend. Russ, really appreciate you doing this. I want to rate whatever the opposite of a red flag is. I want to wave that, a green flag maybe. Just the fact that you're invested enough in these roles and in the content program at Docsend to be willing to participate in this. You volunteered. I didn't even ask you, which I think is just so cool. So I really appreciate you being here to chat about these roles.
Of course.
Could you just give us kind of overview of Docsend? Who is Docsend? What is Docsend? Kind of where is the company right now in its life cycle?
Yeah, sure. So, Russ Hedleston, one of the co-founders at Docsend and the CEO. I've got two other co-founders, Dave and Tony. We've known each other since we went to undergrad at Stanford starting in 2003, and we've also worked together before. So this company is really kind of getting the band back together. We started Docsend in 2013. Fast forward to today, we've got over 15,000 customers. It's all B2B. It's 100% inbound. There's no acquisition cost to our customers, and we're cash flow positive. And we've only raised $15 million. So it's very much a marketing and product-led growth company. And the content program is just central to our success. So that's why this is just such a critical piece for us. But we're a very interesting company in the sense that we kind of fly under the radar, but we're just silently very successful. And we'll continue to be that way kind of going into the future.
That's really cool. I think it's cool. Some of the startups you see out there that are hiring aggressively maybe have just raised, tons and tons of money. They're not making any. The future is unclear. I think it's, I would recommend anyone to consider hitching your wagon to a company that is, not only sustainable, has been around for a while, and is also on a very clear growth trajectory that is going to benefit the individuals who participate as employees in that company also.
Totally. And it's important to be at a company that's not completely overrun by investors. So companies that have raised a ton of capital, your equity might not end up being worth something. So in Docsend's case, our employee equity will absolutely be worth something, just because of how capital efficient we've been as a company.
That's awesome. What is the culture of Docsend like? What's the vibe within the company?
Yeah, it's a really fun culture. Whenever I get this question, it's hard for me to answer because I just think back to all the companies I've worked at. I almost describe a great company culture as just the absence of bad things. So as a company, we've tried to be really diligent about getting the right people into the company. And whenever someone is not a fit, doing the hard thing and kind of getting them out. We say there's a great spot for someone everywhere, but just might not be here in some cases. And so that because we've been so diligent in hiring and managing our team well, people just like each other. They respect their coworkers. It's very much a best idea wins type of company. It's very flat. It's all these things that every company says they are, but in our case, I do really believe that to be true. And the company is only 52 people, so it's relatively small. And one of the things we tell everyone at Docsend is that there are a lot of ways to measure success. It's not just how much money you raise and how many people you are. It's having a great product, having a great company. And that doesn't necessarily require a ton of people, but it also makes it a fun place to work because it's not in hyper growth mode, but it's a small, tight knit group of people, very welcoming. We have really fun activities and events that we do. We have some remote employees, 20%. Everyone else is in San Francisco, where we have a beautiful office in the financial district. In the winter, we all go skiing together in Tahoe. Not next year, but historically. And then in the summer, we'll do a river rafting trip where everyone comes out. We go down the Russian River, and we fly people in who are remote for those activities. And we have game nights kind of monthly. We do happy hours. I can generally say it is a really fun place to be.
That's awesome. That's so cool. When I was talking to Alex before, he mentioned that you personally are invested in content. And so I'm curious, what is your involvement in marketing and with content? Like, will the folks who fill the director role and the content manager role end up working directly with you at all?
Oh, they definitely will. Yeah. And that's also why I'm so invested in making this, a great hire. So, I mean, part of my role as the CEO is just to be the face of the company. So whenever we're talking to reporters, like I'm always in those calls. And, whenever we're, working on content, like, I'm happy to provide input or advice, like making introductions to people who can be quotes or can be helpful. So there's a whole variety of ways that I'm involved with the content team. Content is one of those strategies that's just worked incredibly well for us too as a business, and therefore it's really the best use of my time. So to like make sure that that continues to be effective for us.
That's awesome. I will tease an article that I wrote for the Animals blog years ago about content marketing culture, which I believe is genuinely a thing, and so often comes from the top down. And so when the leadership of a company is invested and bought in, and you don't have to sell every single idea, it makes it's just a nicer environment to do your craft in, and it allows you to be more successful because the runway for the longer term plans is already built in. You don't have to convince everyone that SEO takes a while, or great writing requires lots of editing, which slows it down. Like just some of those little things that content marketers know to be true. When you can be in an environment where all of that is embraced, it makes everything a little better.
Yeah, totally. Like we're definitely long-term thinkers with this stuff. Like we published our first like research report on fundraising in 2015. That thing is still alive and getting lots of visits today. And this year we've been doing a bunch more research reports on like pre-seed and seed and Series A fundraising. But one of the things we do is we use the data in our system as an unfair advantage to be better at storytelling, which is just not something that every company has access to data like that, or even like the mindset to run that playbook, because it does take a while. But it ends up being that content layer cake that just stacks over time. For Docsend, we also talk about our technology being a horizontal product, but we have to market it vertically. And so, people think of us as like a fundraising widget, but they don't realize that like people use us for fundraising, for investor relations, for M&A, as a data room, for like sales teams, for customer success teams. It's all these different use cases for Docsend, and each of them actually requires its own content strategy to get out there and get our voice heard. And we primarily focused on fundraising because we're just really good at that one. But especially for the director role, like there's a lot of green space out there that will be really fun to figure out, like what is the right content strategy to target like users in other verticals where we already have a significant user base. We just want to like accelerate the growth of that.
Right. In a previous role, I worked in sales and we used Docsend. So I can speak to the product. It is actually good. And it's nice to work at a place too, where you can be proud of the product that you're working on.
Oh, totally.
Awesome, Russ. I really appreciate it. Anything else about Docsend or these roles that folks should know about?
I think that these are just going to be really fun roles, honestly, just because one of the support that the people in these roles will get from the company and from me, but also just the amount of creativity that's there, and the amount of budget that we have to spend on it, knowing how strategic it is to the company. So, I mean, if I was a rock star content person, this feels like a really great opportunity to kind of get in and like build out a larger team, and feel really good about that and feel well respected in the company. So I'm really looking forward to getting some more people in the door and having them to work with.
That's awesome. So for folks interested, there'll be buttons below and to the side of this post where you can express interest, and I'll be making intros to Docsend as we find good candidates. Russ, really appreciate it. We'll have some good folks coming your way soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, take care.